The Georgia Bulldogs don't switch up their style too often. And why should they? The red jerseys, silver breeches, and oval G logo are some of the most recognizable visuals in all of college football. They're up there with the maize and blue, or the burnt orange, or big red as classic hallmarks of one of America's finest traditions. And though there have been some tweaks to the uniform over the years, Georgia's basically kept the same getup for the better part of a century. Sure, there's been stuff like Vince Dooley getting rid of the silver breeches for like 15 years in favor of white pants for some reason, but he changed them back in 1980 and the team immediately went undefeated and became national champions. Perhaps that taught Georgia something about its uniform that maybe some other programs could stand to learn too. If it ain't broke, do not fix it. But we're not here to talk about the deep tradition of Georgia football uniforms, kind of the opposite actually. Because there have been times where the Bulldogs have broken their mold and worn something else for a change, and the results have been weird. So with that said, let's look at the history of Georgia football, its alternate uniforms, and most importantly, how the team played in them. The early history of Georgia wearing black jerseys instead of red was sometime in the early 40s and is pretty spotty. Heisman-winning Bulldogs running back Frank Sinkwich was pictured on a Preview magazine cover in 1942 rocking a black jersey, but there's no recorded evidence that these were ever actually worn by the team in a game. It's possible, but all we have is a couple pictures from a photo shoot and some rumors. Once more modern football equipment started to take shape and Georgia arrived at its now familiar look, the Bulldogs didn't really bother with alternates at all for a few decades. The only time they mixed it up was for the 1991 Independence Bowl, where at the seniors' request, the helmet had a black face mask and stripe. And they won the game too, beating Arkansas 24-15. But that was the only time they ever wore those helmets. Then Big Jim Donnan got to Athens in 1996 and change was afoot, son. Donnan added the black stripe back to the helmet permanently, and for the first time in team history, the Bulldogs wore black pants in a game. It was the 1998 Outback Bowl, where quarterback Mike Bobo cooked Wisconsin, completing 26 of 28 passes for 235 yards and a touchdown, on his way to MVP honors as the Bulldogs won 33-6. So, was it the pants? Well, Donnan did later say that the players had wanted to do it all season, and that it was a morale thing. The kids, quote, went nuts, and the whole team couldn't wait to wear the black pants again the next year. Sure enough, Donnan's Bulldogs again sported the black pants in 1998, and this time, they didn't just do it for a bowl game. They brought them out against their biggest rival. And this time, at some of the players' request, the jerseys were red? Whatever morale boost the black pants supposedly provided the Bulldogs from the season before didn't happen this time. Despite having just 1 yard less of total offense than Florida did in the game, they had 31 less points and fell to the Gators 38-7. Georgia never wore that uniform combination again. Some players didn't love it anyway. Safety and future Valdosta State DBs coach Kirby Smart later referred to it as hideous, which, yeah. It's one thing with the white jersey, but this is just pretty ugly looking. That was it for any alternate looks for Georgia for what looked like the foreseeable future. Donnan was let go after the 2000 season, and in came Mark Richt. Richt's first 6 years at the helm were a huge step up from the Donnan era. The Bulldogs won SEC titles in 2002 and 2005, as well as the Sugar Bowl, Capital One Bowl, and Peach Bowl. But they did it all in their familiar red and white home and aways. Nobody seemed to really care. The program was winning more, and the much bigger issue with fans was starting to become Richt's issues with getting to the national championship. 2007 was one of Richt's best chances to make a run yet. One of the most hyped up players in program history, quarterback Matthew Stafford, was entering his sophomore season.
We like, old Biggie Smalls songs, Tupac songs.
Talented and inexplicably red-shirted running back Noshawn Marino was set to make his debut. And there were plenty more impact players on the team, like Muhammad Massaquoi, Clint Bowling, Geno Atkins, Marcus Howard, Asher Allen, and Donnell Ellerby. But the year got off to a weird start. Georgia lost to a middling South Carolina team in Week 2 before going into Tuscaloosa and beating a ranked Alabama team, which is still the last time Georgia has beaten the Tide and Bryant-Denny as of the time of this video. But then, 2 weeks later, they got thumped 35-14 by Tennessee behind a 3-touchdown performance from Vols running back Arian Foster. The Bulldogs were sitting at 4-2 and dangerously close to falling out of the top 25. But then, they locked in. 3 straight wins, including a huge one over number 9 Florida that included the infamous Gator Stomp celebration, got the Bulldogs back to 7-2 and number 10 in the country, entering a huge home game against number 18 Auburn. This installment of the Deep South's oldest rivalry was a critical point for these Bulldogs. Would they continue as one of the hottest teams in the country, or would another brutal SEC loss finally derail the season for good? The anticipation on campus was palpable, and the week of the game, Georgia's seniors called for a blackout. The school asked fans to come to Sanford wearing black, and almost immediately, the rumors started circulating. Were the Bulldogs going to come out in black jerseys for the first time in school history? Well, when pregame warm-ups rolled around, Georgia hit the field in there. Just take it away, Vern.
Red home uniforms.
Well, so much for that. I guess having most of the crowd wearing black is still cool, and it's not like the color of the jersey matters anyway. All that's really important is lining up, hitting the guy in front of you, playing hard, and having fun. Wait a minute, they're coming back out. People freaking lost it, man. I mean, can you blame them? The hint was there by asking fans to wear black, but aside from that, Rick gave no confirmation whatsoever that this was going to happen. No one even knew what a black Georgia jersey would look like. It had literally never been seen or previewed in any capacity. That's pretty unheard of now in the social media era where you see teams do these over-the-top professional photo shoots to reveal their new jerseys. These things were first seen on the field. This is the stuff, man. Easily the most well-known Georgia alternates, and for good reason. They just look sweet. The red outline around the number, the way it contrasts with the silver pants, how it makes the red helmet pop even more, these uniforms are cool. But how exactly did this all come together? And did the players know about it? Who exactly did know about it? Well, according to Rick, seniors had been asking for the jerseys for years, and his response was always the same.
And almost every single year, they're like, Coach, can we get black jerseys? Can we get black jerseys? I'm like, I can't call Nike and have them make black jerseys tomorrow. You know, you got to plan these things out, so.
But the 2006 preseason was different. This time, Rick actually did make the call to Nike and ordered black jerseys for the then upcoming 2007 season. But he didn't tell the players. In fact, he kind of told them the opposite.
So when they left my house, they're thinking, oh, crap, we're not going to be able to get these black jerseys, right? So they came to me and said, can we at least ask the fans to go have a blackout? I said, yeah, we could do that. Well, all this time, myself and the equipment man, we were about the only two people that knew. We had the black jerseys waiting.
There's another funny story about how these jerseys got delivered to the locker room. The morning of the game, Georgia's equipment manager, John MacLeod, drove up to the door of the Georgia locker room with a large laundry bin in his truck bed that he claimed had towels, but really had the you-know-whats in it. The only problem was, the tailgate door jammed shut at the last second, and he was now forced to lift it over the side. But it was really heavy, and he needed a hand. Luckily, a buddy helped him out, and they lifted it over, and MacLeod successfully snuck them in. Who was the good Samaritan that helped him out, you might ask? It was Auburn's equipment manager, Jim Van Zant, who was under the impression that he was helping unload towels. He was, quote, mad as heck after the game. So this really was almost a complete secret. After warm-ups, Georgia always had a tradition in the locker room before the game where they turned the lights out and one of the players said a prayer meant to fire up the team. Only this time, when the lights came back on, there was a surprise waiting in the Bulldogs' lockers.
The lights come on and those guys go to their lockers and they erupted. I mean, it was crazy.
So, with all that backstory, how did the game go? Well, I guess we could start by looking at the first snap.
Lester is the deep back. Brandon Cox will throw on first down. Intercepted. Picked
okay.
By Keelan Johnson.
Well, Georgia only managed a field goal there, and then Auburn answered with one of their own. So this is very much still a game.
Stafford. Nobody open. Now he's got Massaquoi. Wide open. Touchdown. Georgia Bulldogs. Stafford back. Lobs it left side for Bailey. Perfect. Touchdown, Georgia.
Okay, so Georgia is up 17-3. But 17 unanswered points from Auburn have given the Tigers the lead, so it's still a game.
Toss. Marino, he's got some room. Cut. What a cut. Too high. Cox under pressure. Goes deep. Intercepted. Keelan Johnson with his second of the game. No blitz. Stafford deep. He's got Bailey. Diving catch. Good. They snap it. Marino, how about that? Thomas Brown. Thomas Brown. To the one. They hand it to Sutherland, the fullback. Touchdown.
Okay, so yeah, this ended up being a rout. Sanford Stadium was a madhouse by the start of the fourth quarter, and in true 2007 fashion, the whole place was rocking out to Soulja Boy's hit single Crank That. Regrettably, I can't play it for you here because I'll get a copyright claim, but trust me, it was awesome. I mean, look at it. Everyone was cranking that Soulja Boy, even good old Vern and Gary.
I didn't even dance at my daughter's wedding.
But for Auburn, that Soulja Boy was cranking them. The Dogs won it 45-20 and quickly became one of the most iconic wins in Georgia football history. Georgia went on and went out that year and qualified for the 2008 Sugar Bowl, where they once again busted out the black uniforms. And this was another blowout for the Bulldogs, who grounded the high-flying Hawaii offense 41-10. All in all, it was a successful first season for the black jerseys. They made an unforgettable debut in one of the most celebrated rivalries in college football history, and looked sleek as ever in the Superdome as Georgia capped off the year. Not to mention becoming inextricably linked with hip-hop legend Soulja Boy aka Big Draco along the way. And those 2007 Bulldogs, after the weird start they got off to, finished number 2 in the AP poll that year. With Stafford, Marino, and much of the crew returning for 2008, the Bulldogs and their new digs were looking to reach the top of the mountain. And for the first time in school history, Georgia entered the season ranked number 1, in both the AP poll and the coach poll, I might add. The Bulldogs beat up on 2 cupcakes to start the year before getting their revenge on South Carolina and beating Arizona State on the road to make it a 4-0 start. And though they had been bumped to number 3 by now, they had a chance to return to the top spot if they could get a win at home against their opponent this week. Who was their opponent that week? No one. It's not important. Don't worry about it. All you need to know, dear viewer, is that this is a huge game for the Bulldogs. And someone get Angus Young on the phone because we are back in black, baby. Mark Richt said so ahead of time this time. And look at the crowd. The end zones are painted black this time. The team is as fired up as ever. Let's do this. Also, they're playing Nick Saban, by the way.
Nice play action fake, tremendous protection. Julio Jones inside the 10, still on his feet, dives. Coffee off that left side, cuts back, dives, touchdown. Draw play, Upchurch walks in, touchdown. Nobody else in big-time college football has played fewer, and this pass intended for Jones is a touchdown.
Yeah, this was a whooping. Georgia scored some window dressing touchdowns in the second half to make the final score look a bit more humane, but anyone who watched knew the Bulldogs had been humiliated. The rest of the season wasn't a rousing success either. Florida got their revenge for the Gator Stomp in blowout fashion, and Georgia ended the year with the second half collapse against Georgia Tech. 2008 wound up as one of the most disappointing years in program history. And then Richt kinda tried to do it again the next year. You see, the true magic of that Auburn blackout was the surprise element. So Richt decided to do something similar for the Bulldogs' 2009 matchup with Florida. The Bulldogs season had gotten off to a tough start, way tougher than 07, they were 4-3 at this point, and Richt again decided the team needed some extra juice for the big rivalry game. So he again pulled the surprise uniforms in the locker room trick. Only this time, he surprised them with these. Interesting. Well, did it work?
Here's a play fake. Tebow goes deep. He's got a man in the end zone. Cooper, touchdown. He's been really good here in the first quarter. And that one is gathered in. Touchdown, Riley Cooper. Cox, deep, man open. Caught. Touchdown, Aaron White, the tight end.
Oh, look at Joe Cox and the team getting fired up. I think I smell a comeback. Yeah, these didn't work either. Georgia threw 4 interceptions and lost 41-17. It was their third loss in 4 games and the team finished 8-5. If the Alabama game wasn't enough, this was what did it. This was the turning point for Georgia alternates. Black jerseys, helmets, pants, all of it was cast out. They were cursed, some said, or maybe they made the players too overconfident. I personally think it had more to do with the whole Julio Jones and Tim Tebow of it all, but what do I know? Black uniforms, once seen as the coolest thing ever, were now bad and then apparently making the team lose. So they stopped, and Georgia never wore alternates again for the rest of the Richt era, which ended after the 2015 season. Do you remember that DB from the 90s who did not like the Jim Don and Atlanta Falcons gradient prototype uniforms, called it hideous? Well, he's the coach now. Kirby Smart was hired before the 2016 season, and with him brought a new sense of excitement into the program. Here was a coach who had cut his teeth under Nick Saban, knew how to recruit, and perhaps most importantly, once put on that Georgia uniform himself. But one question soon arose. Would his players perhaps be putting on any alternate uniforms? Well, speculation arose when pictures of recruits wearing black jerseys began popping up on social media, with one recruit even straight up tweeting that Georgia would wear them in the fall. But Smart, ever keen to keep the main thing, was hesitant to confirm anything, and said stuff like, the energy and excitement should be on who you're playing, not what you're wearing. But Georgia did indeed bring back the black after all, this time for a mid-November showdown in Sanford Stadium. At noon? Against Louisiana Lafayette? Oh, okay. I mean, they won. It was 35-21, but they still won. Kirby didn't really feel like it gave the players any extra energy, but did note the impact it seemed to have on the crowd.
I don't think the kids were more excited because of the color of jersey. I think it's cool if the whole stadium buys in and we all do it and we have a blackout. I think that's great. But it's not like there's any more or less energy, because the energy you create is what you create. So you control your own energy. The jersey doesn't.
But the Smart era didn't really write its own chapter in the history of Georgia alternate uniforms until a few years later, when the pandemic-affected 2020 season rolled around. It was the 40th anniversary of Georgia's 1980 title team, and the program introduced not one but two brand new alternate uniforms to commemorate the occasion, with a tweet declaring something old and something new. Now, predictably, Georgia got kinda clowned for announcing a year-long celebration of a title they had won 40 years ago and hadn't reclaimed since. But it was nice to see them introduce new alternate uniforms while still honoring the program's long-held sense of tradition. The white jersey, red pants combination was the something old of the two. The red pants were a tribute to old Georgia road uniforms from that period where Dooley got rid of the silver breeches. The stripes on both the pants and jersey sleeves are pretty faithful to the original uniform. These uniforms look great in the photo shoot and made their debut in Week 1 of 2020 when Georgia took on Arkansas on the road. The Bulldogs looked pretty awful offensively to start the game, despite a good defensive performance. But then, former walk-on and JUCO bandit Stetson Bennett IV entered the game with Georgia trailing and threw 2 touchdown passes in the second half to help Georgia pull ahead. The Bulldogs went on to win 37-10. So a good start for the year of the alternate. The newer uniform of the two was a black jersey with white block numbers and modern elements like a dog collar design and the new-ish Bulldog logo on the side of the sleeves. Georgia wore these for the first time in a late November matchup with Mississippi State. The Bulldogs were coming off a humiliating loss to Florida in which both Bennett and Dwan Mathis played pretty awful, and so USC transfer quarterback JT Daniels was getting his first start as a Bulldog in this one. And while Georgia could only muster 8 rushing yards as a team, they didn't need to run the ball like a bunch of squares. Why, you might ask? Well, obviously because Jermaine Burton turned into the greatest receiver of all time. Come on, you're smart. You knew that was going to happen. Burton went off, ending the night with 197 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Daniels filled up the stat sheet himself, throwing for 401 yards and 4 scores, including this bomb to Kearis Jackson that ended up being the game winner. Now, should Georgia have been in this close of a game against a 2-4 Mississippi State team? Probably not. But this game was a lot of fun, and the jerseys looked pretty cool under the lights. These alternates made one more appearance in that season's Peach Bowl, where the Bulldogs took on Cincinnati. This was a hard-fought game between two talented teams that both went on to make the college football playoff the year after. After really struggling on both ends of the ball, Georgia trailed 21-10 entering the fourth quarter of this one. And Azeez Ojulari's strip sack led to a Zamir White touchdown, although Georgia missed a 2-point try. They cut the deficit to 2 with a field goal and then got another huge defensive stop. With a minute and a half to play and no timeouts, Georgia drove down the field for Jack Podlesny's game-winning field goal. Undefeated in the alternates for 2020. Hi. I'm Bo. I'm the guy that's been talking this whole time. Thank you for making it this far in the video, that's awesome. Now, I know that my face is not what you came here to see, and for that I am truly sorry, but I just felt like at this point in the video, I owed it to you to come clean with you face to face about something. Because I haven't been entirely truthful with you. Some of you might have already picked up on this, but Georgia has one alternate uniform that I have not brought up so far. And that's because I don't really like to talk about it. It doesn't conjure up any good memories or feelings or anything. These uniforms aren't canon. They are an abomination. They are a monochromatic monstrosity. They are an insult. A spit in the face to the identity of Georgia football. To SEC football. To college football. A middle finger to tradition, to pageantry. A middle finger to colors that look good. A bright red, action figure looking declaration from Nike that we hate you and we want to make your uniforms look like our socks. They made the damn Georgia Bulldogs look like Pez dispensers. Sorry, I'm overreacting, I know. It's just a football uniform. And I mean, I had some of those socks back in my day. I thought they were cool. And I like some of the Nike products. And I already told you about all the other alternate Georgia jerseys and stuff. So I guess let's talk about the Power Ranger uniforms. Here goes nothing. Nike Pro Combat. Where do we begin? This was a special series of football uniforms that Nike introduced in late 2009 and continued into the 2010 season. They were advertised as new, lightweight uniforms that would, quote, reflect the team's traditions, character, and culture. Yeah, remember that part. They were, quote, high octane, and by no means not your father's uniforms, which is a double negative, but I digress. It was Georgia's turn to receive a Pro Combat makeover in 2011, and the results were these. Again, where do I even start, man? They didn't even use the normal Georgia red. The stripe on the helmet is ugly. The helmet being silver is ugly. The chunk of red on the face mask is ugly. The numbers are ugly. The shoulders are ugly. It's all ugly. Why does it say Georgia on the back? The players are not all named Georgia. This isn't a high school team with a budget. Is that their reflection of tradition? Reflecting the tradition that the school is called Georgia? Why did you do this, Phil Knight? I know it's weird to have this uniform out of order with the rest of them, but I wanted to do that to show you how much of a radical departure these really are. Also, they're so ugly that I figured if I put them any earlier in the video, you might find them repulsive and click off the video. Which I wouldn't blame you for. Georgia wore these for the 2011 season opener at the Georgia Dome against number 5 Boise State, a game they deserved to lose for taking the field in these. Well, I'm happy to tell you that justice was served. After Georgia took an early 7-0 lead courtesy of the criminally underrated Brandon Boykin, Kellen Moore and the Broncos put up 28 unanswered points on the Bulldogs and went on to win 35-21, as Georgia's last-ditch comeback effort fell short. At least now, Nike has seemingly redirected all their resources towards making new organ combos, so we're probably safe from these, frankly offensive uniforms now. Probably. So, what are the chances of Georgia wearing any sort of alternates in the future? Well, the black jerseys are still as popular as ever on recruiting visits, and there's even been a white helmet added to the mix for the kids to try on. Whether or not that helmet will ever be worn in a game remains to be seen, but you never know. Kirby Smart has said multiple times that he doesn't care that much about alternate uniforms, and seems to be more on the side of, if you need to be wearing a cool jersey to be extra motivated, then you probably aren't built the right way anyway. And maybe that Alabama loss from 2008 was just so bad that Georgia will never bust out alternates for a big game again. Now, the Georgia Equipment account on Instagram did post that they're bringing back the black uniforms in November 2025, but the post went up on April Fool's Day. And I agree with Cash Jones, it's probably just a joke. Or they'll black out the Charlotte 49ers at 12:45 p.m., because there's no way they're wearing black against Texas, right? Either way, Georgia still has some of the best primary uniforms in all of the land, and that's really what matters most. But it's always interesting to reflect on when they tried to blend that proud tradition with new elements as well. And as we've been talking about, results have been mixed. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it all the way to this point, I really appreciate it. Please like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to Georgia at the Voice of College Football. We do a live show once a week, and the anticipation is only growing as we get closer to the 2025 season. We'll be covering the Bulldogs all year, making videos like this and more stuff like that. So if you enjoyed this video, consider sticking around with us for the season, and thank you for watching. Have a good one.